short answer as to why your client has no urgency is actually a question. And the question is, why are you wasting time with someone who's not motivated to buy?
Welcome to the Master Dealmakers Secrets podcast. And now, here's sales growth strategist, John Blake.
Welcome to Master Dealmakers Secrets. I'm John Blake. This is episode 253. And today we're going to talk about what to do if you get to the end of your sales process with someone and you find that your buyer simply is not motivated to go ahead. There is just no urgency whatsoever. I got this question last week when I've got a new client that I'm working with in the trades and construction industry. And one of the reps messaged me and he said, "What do I do?" There's no urgency from this person to actually make a decision. What's the best course of action? So today is going to be all about that. What to do when your client has no urgency to buy. So it's a really good question, and it happens a lot. And there are some short answers to this that really uncover a bigger problem, which needs to be addressed from an overall systems perspective. And then there are some tactical things that I'm going to share with you that you can do if you are in a situation where you don't have the option to be able to get in your metaphorical time machine and go backwards and redo the start of your process with a potential client. So I'm hoping that this will be useful. I'm sure it will be. The short answer as to why your client has no urgency is actually a question. And the question is, why are you wasting time with someone who's not motivated to buy, right? So ideally, you should have uncovered the fact that they weren't ready to buy before you made them an offer and saved yourself a bunch of time by either not making them an offer or saying to them, look, is this the best question that you can ask in that situation is this a later thing for you or is it a now thing? And if it's, oh no, we need to do this now, well, then you could say, well, or if they say, look, this is a later thing, you can say, well, how much later are we talking? When ideally do you want to make sure that you've got this in place? And if they say, mid next year, just say, well, why don't we chat again in May? And we can revisit the conversation then. Why would you waste your time with someone who's not ready to buy? So that's all very well for me to say that without the gift of hindsight, or with the gift of hindsight. So the short explanation of that is you should have uncovered urgency and motivation before you make an offer. So with that said, conditions might have changed, right? So your buyer may have changed their thinking on what they want to do. The conditions driving the purchase may have changed. So potentially they thought they were going to put their if we're going to go with the landscaping example, they were going to put their property on the market, in which case they had to get the property set up within a particular time frame. But now they're no longer going to put their property on the market, or they're going to delay putting their property on the market for another year. So there's no urgency, right? That's not your fault. They've changed their thinking. They may still want to go ahead and there may still be an opportunity to create urgency. But if that was the main driver behind the purchase, well, then that's not your fault. It may not still be needed. So they may have decided to do it themselves, as much of a disaster as that will probably end up being. They may have decided to do it themselves, or they may have just decided to do something, really cheap and really nasty. So there are circumstances that may have changed. So then really what that boils back to is ask. Just say, look, especially if you've covered timing, which you should have. Like there are ideally 9 things that you need to cover off on before you make an offer, and timing is one of them. So if you have had a situation where you've said, look, is this a later thing for you or is it a now thing? And they've said, oh, no, we need to get this done straight away. Well, then you can go back and say, well, Before, when we were having this conversation, you said that this was urgent. I'm curious, what's changed? Because if they say something, it's true. If you say something, they can doubt it. So you're better always to be able to go back to things that they told you in your discovery part of the process, as opposed to things that you said. So go back to the original. Well, so none of that helps. None of that is helpful if you've got one of these now. So you've gone and you've invested the time. You've spent the time with them on the phone. You've gone and seen them, on site, or you've gone back and put a proposal together, and you've presented the proposal. And now there's just no urgency to buy. So what do you do if you're in that situation? None of what I've talked about is useful for the deals that you've got in your pipeline now. So I wanted to make sure I gave you something useful for that. So if you have got one of these, or two of these, or three of these, or even six of these in your pipeline, what can you do? Okay, well, I'm going to give you three things. There are probably some more, but these are probably the three things that I think would be most useful. The first one is go back to the original reason or motivation driving this purchase or this outcome in the first place. So you could say, well, look, you mentioned that, this was something that you've been putting up with for the last 3 years and that you really want to get something done about it. I'm curious, what's changed? Why is it no longer a priority? So, seek to understand what's going on. See if you can get some clarity as to what's going on. Because what that might do, I guess there's one of two outcomes. The first outcome is that they'll actually tell you something that's changed, which means that this is no longer a priority. And there could be a massive list of reasons why it might not be a priority right now. Or they may then go back and realize that, well, actually, yeah, we have been putting up with this for a long time. Maybe we really should get something done about this now. So that could uncover or re-uncover that original urgency. So that's number one. Go back to the original reason or motivation driving this particular purchase in the first place. The second one, ask them what happens if they don't do it at all, right? So I think that's always a really good question. It's like, well, we want to delay, we're going to wait until next year. And so, well, why even do it at all? Like, why not just not bother? And the reason that you would ask that question is that, again, it creates the outcome in their head where they have to continue to put up with this not fixed indefinitely. And that could give you some, reignite some motivation in wanting to get it done, or giving you a more specific timeline as to when it can be done, so that you don't have to continue to harass them in the meantime. You can put a note in your diary as to when they want to do it. And hopefully that will be a time that is when they actually really are going to do it. But you'll notice that I use the word hopefully, right? So there's any number of things that can change. And I often say that, the majority of pipelines, the majority of funnels are full of hope. They're full of opportunities that hopefully they'll get back to me, or hopefully they'll be ready next time I speak to them. And you want to eliminate that as much as possible. And if you would like to be able to eliminate those conversations as much as possible, the best place to start is with a sales process audit. You can see that on my website. If you just do a Google search for John Blake Sales, I will come up, and the audit page is right there. You will have an opportunity to register. I'll send you a diagnostic, and then we can look at exactly what it is that needs to change in your process to avoid these type situations happening once and for all. So the first one is go back to the original reason or motivation behind this in the first place. What's changed? Remind them of what they said that they wanted to get done. Ask them what happens if they don't do this at all. So, well, why not just not bother? And be quiet. Listen to what they say. Because that will often revisit them, as I said, get them immersed again into their entire motivation for wanting to get this done in the first place. And the third one is explain the timeline for them to get the result if they get started when they are now proposing, and how that might compromise the outcome. So I'll say that again. Explain the timeline to them in terms of the result if they get started when they are now proposing, and how that might compromise the outcome. So what that might sound like in a conversation is, well, we think can you give us a couple of months? Can you give us, come back to us in a couple of months? Okay. Well, what specifically are you hoping that might have changed in a couple of months? Well, we'll just probably be in a better position to do it. Okay, so what, financially? So again, these questions might flush out, what's the main problem? And most objections really come down to assuming that there is trust there, assuming that they believe you can help them. Most objections will come down to price or perception of value, which basically is the same thing. Like, do they actually perceive this as being value for money? And then the other side of price is, do they actually have the money to do it? Is it just more than what they had planned to spend on this particular outcome? So most objections come down to money, or they come down to timing, or they come down to another decision maker that's potentially not on board, which might be a husband or a wife or a business partner. So explain to them what will happen if they delay. So let's say, right now we're in November, and someone says, oh, well, we want to get started after the school holidays. So, okay, well, we want to get started in February. It's like, okay, well, and if we go with the landscaping example, in February, okay, so it's, which council? I go, it's that council. So yeah, it's a minimum of 2 months to get your approval. So February, March. Now we're into April, so allow an extra month, because sometimes it can be 3 months, and they will also be dealing with the backlog of all the people that decided that they were going to wait until the new year to get it done. So you may as well allow 3 months. So now we're talking the end of April. Then we start in, then we've got we've probably got a 4-week wait until I can mobilize all of the different contractors. So we start in June. Well, June is where it's going to start raining. So over winter, sure, we can, there'll be days that we can work, but there's going to be a bunch of days that are raining where we can't. So instead of your project taking 6 weeks to complete or 2 months to complete, it could easily take 3 or 4 months, which is going to delay the result even more. So if you want to start in February as opposed to starting now, if you started now, we could probably be finished by the end of February. If you want to start in Feb, you're probably not looking at having this completed until probably July or August. So it's probably going to mean that it takes 6 months as opposed to 4 months. So that's just one example that you could walk somebody through, because how, what a project looks like. How long things take. So that was a specific example. Other consequences of delaying could be price rises. Okay, so I can guarantee, if you confirm your choice to go ahead with me today, I can guarantee this price. What I do know is that in the next 6 months, there is likely to be a price rise. And if that's the case, the price that I've given you, the project fee that I've given you today, will no longer apply, and it will, in all likelihood, be more. So if you're happy to deal with a higher investment to get this done by delaying it for 2 months, then that's up to you. But I'm just letting you know that there is a possibility that you might be paying more. The second one, further deterioration of their existing situation. It's like, okay, well, this is happening now, and the impact is it's causing this. The longer you leave it, the worse that's going to get. So it's hard to give specific examples, but it might be further frustration. It might be, if it was a business services type thing, it could be staff turnover, right? So you might be selling a leadership program, and you've got really high staff turnover. Okay, well, if you leave starting for 3 months, how many more people are going to leave, and what's that going to cost you? So there are consequences of an existing situation that remains unsolved, or an existing problem that remains unsolved, getting worse. And then the third one is really just further unpacking the impact of doing nothing. So they are some ways that you can create urgency, or you can uncover urgency through asking different questions with a buyer that appears to have no motivation to want to actually proceed. So I hope that helps, and I will look forward to talking to you on the next podcast. Cheers.
You've been listening to Master Dealmaker Secrets with John Blake. Subscribe to get more in-depth strategies and maximize your sales process with new episodes every other week. And double your inquiry to sale conversion with the lead flow you already have. Go to johnblakeaudio.com for his exclusive, free, no fluff audio training and companion PDF guide.